You're listening to an archived Cabral Concept podcast. After listening to this show, check out the most up-to-date podcasts available at stephencabral.com/podcasts or search directly on iTunes. And now, welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
I'm really happy to have you here today on our Mindset and Motivation Monday, because I'm going to be talking about one of my favorite topics. It's something that I give myself a pep talk on all the time, and it's so that I don't forget. I don't forget where I came from. And essentially, here's the thing. Life is essentially neutral. We call things good or we call things bad. We label them that way, or we say this is easy and this is hard. But the truth is, two people can walk down the same exact path and experience life in a very different way. And that comes from our experiences from which we can draw upon. And that's why in life, there's a lot of things that just kind of brush off some people as no big deal, where others, it absolutely weighs them down. And so one of those analogies that I like to make is there's a lot of people right now who get to experience the same level of health that I have for myself right now, present day 2017. But they've done nothing to get there. They eat whatever they want, they exercise or not, and they're in great health. So that's interesting because I've never had that. You know, I didn't grow up a healthy kid. I was always a sick kid, but then I got really sick at 17 years old. And it was 10 years of crawling and scratching my way back to health. So the difference is now when I'm looking at myself present day, way back from what it took to get well, I have a deep level of appreciation. I have a different level of perspective. That's what it's all about. Life is about perspective. Because that person who enjoys the same level of health as me, they may never think of it. They might not appreciate it. But me, I go through my day extremely happy, upbeat, really loving and enjoying life. And the difference is I still know very, very clearly, very vividly what it was like to have zero energy, but not zero energy like you're tired. Zero energy like you don't want to form sentences or speak or even think. Or when you go to walk up a flight or two of stairs, the exhaustion that sets in, the rapid heart rate, the flu-like symptoms, living with that on a daily basis, the brain fog, all of those things. I know what that's like. And now that I don't have that, I have more energy than I could possibly imagine, because also I've started the cycle. I'm looking at life in a more positive perspective because I'm also then comparing and contrasting, right? That's the compare and contrast that we need. It's perspective. I know what it's like not to have something. So now that I do have it, I'm unbelievably appreciative. And that's very important. That means for our relationships, for our spirituality, for our health, for our body transformation, for all of these things, we have to have appreciation. And that comes from, most of the time, perspective, because it's hard to appreciate something if you've never experienced the opposite of that. That is the great Tao of life. And that is the yin to the yang, right? That's always been the secret. It's always been a secret that you cannot have the good, the great, without having the sad and the bad. Like, that's the truth. And so that's why, when I'm feeling great today, I still understand what it's like. I remember what it's like. I won't let myself forget. I don't dwell on things. I certainly don't dwell on my past, but I don't let myself ever forget what it was like to not be healthy, to feel basically all alone, like no one understood what I was going through, and how could they, right? I mean, they weren't going through what I was going through. I understand that. That made me angry back then. Today, I understand that you can't walk in someone else's shoes. You have your own shoes to walk in, and that's it. It's your own perspective, no one else's. But that's why, for me to go on the journey, to meet my mentor, for her to say, You've already read thousands of books. How have you not gone back yet to get your degree? She pushed me to say, you need to believe in yourself a little bit more. You need to go back to school, get your degree. And then me, still being the skeptic that I am, because I went through so much for so long and nothing worked, said, okay, well, let me take this to the next level. I'm going to go study all over the world. I'm going to find out what works. Having $0, $0 in my pocket. This isn't like me having a lot of money in the bank, being like able to go all over the world. No, it wasn't. I lived in some really challenging places as well. I wasn't staying at a hotel. I was staying in these clinics. So a lot of people don't know this, but one of the beautiful things, and I didn't think so at the time, but literally I was studying in India. This was my second internship or residency, whatever you want to refer to it as. And I was at a clinic. And I was at a clinic that wasn't for wealthy people. I did study at some very high-end clinics, but I also studied at some of the we'll call it, I don't know what the proper way to say it, but the lowest end. I studied and I interned and I work with patients in Trivandrum. And this is in Kerala. And I lived myself. There was a bunch of other interns as well. There was about a half dozen of us. And I lived in some of the patient rooms. So if it wasn't full house, that's basically where I was staying. I slept on a mattress that was probably 20 years old. It was only 4 inches or so thick on just a plank platform. No sheets, no mattress cover, no pillow. It was just a blank room, cinder block walls or so, maybe a ceiling fan. I can't even remember. One window with bars over it, no shade or anything. And the bathroom was literally a sink, no hot water, and a hose for a shower. That's it. So you had a bucket to fill up with the hose. You washed yourself with a sponge. That was my shower. And I had a toilet with no toilet paper. Like legitimately, that was my room. And that was to be my room for over a month. And when I was there and I looked at this location, now coming from, I was living in Boston at the time, I came to this place and I was not mentally prepared for that, right? It was hard for those first couple of days thinking like, I'm laying on this bed, there's no sheets, there's no pillow. I have basically a towel rolled up under my head as my pillow. There's no, the light would wake me up right away in the morning. And then I would shower in cold water with a bucket. Again, this wasn't what I was used to. But by the end of that time, I cherished that because I knew that if I could live in that way, how amazing was it going to be when I came back to having hot water, a real shower, all of those things. And the other thing was I learned to do with less. That's going to be one of my big takeaways for today. I learned to do with less. We ate staff meals at this particular location in Trivandrum as well. Every morning for 1 hour, there was a staff meal put out. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner was exactly the same. It was white basmati rice or jasmine rice. It was soya, which is a basically squishy type of bean protein. It was, if we were lucky, chapati. So chapati is basically these coconut flour, and sometimes there's rice, and there's other types of ways to make chapati, but it was basically like a bread, a flat bread. That was our meal. Rice, a flat roll-up, and soya. 3 meals per day. 3 meals per day. That's exactly what it was. That's what the patients were eating for the most part. That's what they served us. The water, the only way to clean it was to boil it. There was not fresh water whenever you wanted it. And again, this was totally foreign to how I was living back in the US. But this is how people every day live in Trivandrum and other parts of India and obviously other parts of the world. And I started to look at it to say, who was I to ask for more? I chose to come here to this clinic. These are people who are sick, and this is how they're living. This is normal to them. So I had to get rid of that judgment-based mentality where I deserve more, I should have more. It was more like, can I do with less? That's what I started to think of. There are books called The Power of Less now. I've talked about minimalism in the past, and if you want to hear my episode on minimalism, you can absolutely search that on the podcast page. But the beautiful thing was your body becomes and your mind becomes unbelievably adaptive to life if you allow it to. If you don't start saying, I'm lacking, instead of how little can I do with? That was what I started to take away from that experience. It was almost like I was there to learn by these doctors. And even though that this was in a kind of more of a lower end setting, we'll put it that way, the doctors were world renowned. This clinic was world renowned because it's not all, again, I had no money going there. It was not all about always charging a premium. It's about doing great work. That was the amazing thing I was learning too. And I've always taken that with me, right? It's not, never do anything for money. I've always learned that. I think my parents instilled that in me as well, is that forget about the whole money aspect. And I know there's a lot of health practitioners, there's a lot of people listening to this podcast, maybe in the role of teaching health as well. Never do anything for the money, ever. Do it for what you love, what you can give of service to others. And if you do it to the absolute best of your ability, and you're always learning, you're always striving to push forward, and then you're always teaching those new things, you're always handing on new things, I believe people will then see the value. So forget about the money, always go with service first. Those are some of those things that I learned and could take back. But what I want to share with you today is this, is that you're probably not going to go and live in India for a month or more, whatever it might be. But what I'm going to ask you is to start to develop your own perspective of how good you do have it now, right? So when I say things, when I ask people to say, doing the Dr. Cabral detox those first 2 days, and it's just shake fasting. If you've never done that before, that can be a challenge to you to push through. But you could do that with any detox. You can even do it with intermittent fasting, right? Try to go 1 day without eating. So what I do a lot of times is I'll go Sunday night, and from Sunday night I'll have dinner then, and then I won't eat all day, just drink water, I'll drink ginger tea, I'll drink hot water with lemon or lime, whatever it might be, and I'll have dinner then again Monday night. I went 1 day without eating. And again, for me now that's easy, but in the first time doing it, that's hard. That's a struggle. But guess what? Dinner that night tastes amazing. And that's what I teach people. So people do the Dr. Cabral detox for their own personal reasons, sometimes to get well, sometimes to lower inflammation, sometimes to lower blood sugar, sometimes to lose weight, whatever it might be. That's great. And because I want to help people succeed in all of those ways. But what I really want is I want them from a subconscious level, what they're learning. People are like, wow, I could go without this. I can go that long without an actual whole food meal. And when I had that meal on day 3 for lunch, and even though it's a vegan-based meal, and I'm not used to eating like that, it tasted amazing. So it's all about the appreciation. Again, I'm just giving the Dr. Cabral detox as an example. You can do this in many areas of your life. You could even do a green juice-based fast if you wanted to. No fruit, just the green juices. You could do that. But what I want you to draw from this as well is that until you have some perspective to draw upon, and until you choose to draw upon that perspective, you're not going to truly appreciate how good you do have it. And I know right now that you might be struggling. There's no doubt about it. And if I just even go back just about 10, 15 years, let's say right around there, I can still go back then and I can see myself at that time not truly with the appreciation that I do have now, because that comes over time. It's not something that just changes tomorrow. It's a work in progress. It's starting to see more good in your life than bad. And even when times are bad, so I had some bad times, but even when times were bad, I said, this is what could be though. I allowed for the potential to be there. Meaning I always say is if one person went through what you're going through right now and overcame it, there's hope for you as well. That's that perspective. It's all about perspective. Sure, things are bad now, but they're going to get better. No doubt about it, because you know what? I'm putting one foot in front of the other and I'm moving forward. So also think of it this way. The struggles that you're going through right now, and I did a podcast on this just a few weeks back about the struggle. The struggles are there, yes, to teach you lessons, absolutely, but it's well beyond that. The struggles are actually there to give you perspective so that when you arrive at a new destination, not only do you know now that you are strong enough to overcome that obstacle, it gives you confidence then to overcome other obstacles in the future, and it gives you appreciation, a new sense of appreciation for where you are now. And that's why my 2 favorite words that I say over and over to myself, and I repeat them whenever I need it, is gratitude and perspective. I'm grateful for what I have now. There can always be more. It could always be better, but I'm grateful for what I have now. And perspective where, yes, I'm moving forward. I plan on doing things. I have goals for myself. But I remember what it was like to have much, much less. And that's why I have that deep sense of appreciation. I believe if you stay focused on this, it will allow you to go through the hard times, and it will allow you to go through the hard days, understanding that discomfort is a part of life, and that discomfort can actually be an enormous benefit to you in the future, as long as it doesn't allow you, or you don't allow it to drag you down and keep you sucked into that quicksand. As long as you understand that it is temporary, whatever discomfort that you are going through right now, it is temporary, as long as you choose to make it that way. Meaning that whatever wellness-based issue you're facing right now, no matter the pain, no matter the struggle, whether it's physical or it's emotional, psychological, whatever it might be, relationship-wise, whatever it is temporary if you allow it to be. How long? Days, weeks, months, whatever it might be, it is temporary. It absolutely is. And you'll be able to draw upon this perspective in the next relationship, or when you get your health back, or when you get your finances back in order, or you lose the weight and you look at yourself in the mirror and you have absolutely a deep level of appreciation for where you are now. When you have that, that's when you start to experience a life full of vitality, of zest, and an overall joy for knowing that you've made it. No matter what happens now in the future, you understand that it's all about perspective. It's about being grateful for where you are now, appreciative from where you came from, but still focused on how much more you can achieve in life. Thank you, everyone, for tuning into the Cabral Concept. I appreciate each and every one of your listens. Thank you so much, and please do feel free to share this show with anyone you believe it could help. I want to sincerely thank you for your support of this podcast. I couldn't do it without you, and I mean that. I truly do. I also want to make sure you knew that we now have multiple ways for you to find your answers to the most difficult health, wellness, weight loss, and anti-aging questions. You can find podcast-specific topics like thyroid, adrenal, hormones, sleep, digestion, Ayurveda, and many more at stevencabral.com/podcasts that will then link you to your favorite Apple, Spotify, and other podcast players. Plus, all new podcasts and weekly exclusive video content is being added to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Stephen Cabral. And that's Stephen with a PH. Head on over and subscribe so that you don't miss any of the exclusive content. Lastly, if you've ever found any of my podcasts or books to be helpful, I would really appreciate it if you could leave a review on iTunes or your favorite media player for the podcast. Rating and subscribing to the YouTube and podcast allow me to reach more and more people and help spread my mission of healing throughout the world. Thank you again for being a part of this movement.